All right, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be doing my first tutorial, and Dehancer reached out to me to put this tutorial together on my color grading process. I love color and I love coloring clips. It's one of my favorite things to do. I've never used Dehancer at all, so they sent me a free license to play around with it, get the hang of it, and show you guys how I would color some of my videos using their plugin. So here we're gonna get started. I got about 8 clips here. I might not go through all of them. So once you've created your project and got some of your clips in here, you can see that all of these are all shot in log format. Very flat, very gray, desaturated colors here. So from here you can go over into this inspector panel. If you don't see this extended panel here, you just go down to the bottom. You can hit general, you can hit extended, but right here where it says camera LUT, you can actually bring this back to Rec 709 with a simple click. You're gonna get all that saturation back. So the only thing I find with that is it burns the color in. So when you do adjustments after that, it just doesn't look the greatest at all. So what I have found, we're gonna put this back to none. What I have found is if you use an adjustment layer over the top of your clip, you then add all your adjustments on top so it doesn't burn in any of your adjustments here. So here in effects, we are going to add Dehancer to our clips, and as you can see, as soon as you put the effect on, it already has its own adjustments made. So what I have been doing is just turning everything off. That way we still have the raw clip, no adjustments here. So at this point I would go and break all these up because they're all different clips, different lighting, different coloring. We're gonna adjust a bunch of these clips here. Zoom in on my timeline. All right, so we are going to start with our base grade. Also, Dehancer comes with its own log conversion. This clip here was shot on a Sony. I'm not sure what camera we shot this on, so I'm liking S-Log3 here, Cinema Gamut. Yeah, I like that a lot. So as you can see, what that did there was it brought it back to its natural state, going from that desaturated clip to what looks more normal, as if you saw it in real life. If you notice our wavelengths, they are nice and contrasted and stretched out. This is kind of exactly what you're looking for. I would still boost my midtones, which is like this section here. I would try and get them up to 50 without blowing anything out. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and make some of our adjustments here. This is your white balance. I'm going to correct that later after I add a filter. So down here, let's turn on this film section here. It's got a whole bunch of like preset LUTs that you can add to this. We're just gonna go down here, check out what this has. I know I saw in another video, this T over here stands for tungsten light and the D would stand for daylight. And that's been a huge help with figuring out this plugin here. But yeah, you can go through and look through all these. Another thing that this plugin here is great for is recreating the film emulation look, especially when you have like a specific vision in mind. Like this is the perfect plugin. I don't use it all the time, but after playing with this a bit, like it definitely gives me like a new vision for videos. Like if I have a specific video that I want to make look like film, I would 10 out of 10 use this plugin. They have a bunch of different LUTs here you can choose from. Yeah, these are all super cool. All right, let's try and give this one like a super vintage feel. Yeah, let's go with that. All right, so Cinestill 50D, the D stands for daylight. I know this push pull is to like saturate and desaturate depending on which direction you go. I want to pull it a little bit where it gives it that more vintage vibe. So down here in Film Developer, I'm still kind of new to the plugin in learning all of what these do. For the most part, I've just been playing around and like really just playing with things until I find something I like. Oh, I see. That kind of takes down your whites. Yeah, we'll leave that off. Close that one. Expand, I'm pretty sure that is like your black point. And well, it says right there, your black point and your white point. If you weren't going to use this log conversion, this would be your best friend. It would take your white points up, bring your black points down, add contrast to the image, and give you initial like base for your color grade. But I don't need that right now, so I'm not going to use it. All right, so here is where it starts to get into really making this look like film. This film grain here is going to add a little bit of graininess, and I know as you go up in millimeter, the grain gets finer and finer, and we're actually going to turn these meters off just so we can see that film grain. It's really going to sell that effect of the old school style film. It's a little bit too much for me. We're gonna jump back to 35. So yeah, it's adding just a little bit of grain on there. Now this halation, it adds like a bloom to the whites and the reds. The way you can really see what is going on is you turn this mask on here, and all of this red is exactly where you are seeing your halation. So if we turn that on and off, it's going to give it that like very ethereal, bloomy effect here. And I know as you go up in millimeter, again, the effect tends to get less and less. Let's see what that's looking like. Yeah, that's looking super old. I don't want it to look too old, but yeah, let's run with that right there. Not bad. So this bloom effect is kind of along the same lines. I think this one solely affects the whites actually. I think I'm gonna leave this halation on. I'm not a fan of the bloom on this clip in general. So next we have this film damage. It is going to leave like pretty much damage on your clip, just like little hairs and dots and specks and dirt on there. You don't really see it on the screen until it's playing. Yeah, but that is going to add another layer to sell the feel of the vintageness of this plugin here. So this overscan is going to give you like a film strip border. There are several different borders to choose from. I like this one here, really sells the vintageness of this effect. Let's run with that. Of course, this shape changes the shape of the frame, but for the sake of this tutorial, let's just do this here. So that's that for that clip. Let's start on this next clip here. So we're back in log. A bunch of these clips were shot in New York. I actually filmed a hat project for my buddy. He created a custom hat for Nas, and that's the hat you see right there. It is dedicated to his album It Was Written, one of my favorite albums. We had a lot of fun going out there, going around his old neighborhood where he grew up. Got to film this, and I ended up with a whole bunch of extra B-roll from the trip. Here we are again. Go for Sony because this was shot on Sony. Bring it back to S-Log 3. It's kind of super blown out. I feel like I could color this down to be super good, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm actually really liking the blown outness of this color here. So yeah, we'll leave that at that. Let's get our meters back up. This looks nice. You can tell that it did its thing. We'll go back down to here, turn this on. That looks super vintage where it's at already. Kodak Vision 3 250D. D is in daylight. We can switch it to tungsten. It does desaturate a bunch, but let's just stick with this one here. Kodak 250D. Did I lose it? No, right there. We have selected this Kodak Vision 3 250D. I do like the blown outness of the whites here. I want to try and recover some of these blues that we have in the image before the conversion. Let's bring up our meters here, and I think now we're gonna have to go into this film developer. See, that's what I don't like, is sometimes the adjustments you make, you see no effect from it unless you use like a prior adjustment. Highlights down a tiny bit, bring that down. We're crushing our blacks, but that's okay. I don't care what anybody says. If it looks good, it looks good. color density. That is going to bring back some of the blown out color here. Print looks like it is something you can adjust to make it look like what it would print on paper, and that is actually really fucking accurate. That's cool. I do like that. And now this is crushing my blacks. It does look good because we're going for that super vintage effect, and I'm just gonna run with that. I like that a lot. We're gonna bring in some film grain. I think that's looking all right. I like the way this looks, super crispy, so I might just leave it at that, to be honest with you. And then just throw some film damage on top. Yeah, let's just leave it clean. I like it clean like that. So here we are with the halation again. We got a lot of shadows in this image, so we're not going to entirely see all the red, but if you look at that, like that made that look super cool. I like the way that looks right there. Yeah, that looks too old. I forgot the one I had. 35. Yeah, I like that right there. That one's super cool. Let's throw some bloom on this. Again, this is going to affect your whites. I like the way that looks right there, so we're gonna run with that one. Film damage. I think this is the only thing I'm gonna use for dirt on this. Like, that one is clear as day. You can see the film damage there, and you can't really tell until you play the video, so you can clearly see the film damage going on there. So yeah, that's really gonna beat it up and sell that old school vibe. Now that that's on, let's turn on the film grain again and see what that looks like. Yeah, so yeah, you just really got to play around with it and get the feel for it, because prior to adding the film damage, I did not like the grain on it, and now that the film damage is on it, the grain looks cool. So I'm gonna leave that on there like that. We're just gonna leave this at this. I really do like this clip the way it is without all the extra stuff. Sometimes less is better than more. So we're just gonna leave this as is. Super old school vibe. I love it. Overall, this plugin is super sick. I'm really liking it. Same thing, shot in New York. Gonna go here and choose camera, Sony. Ooh, I like the way that looks already. This automatically selected S-Log2, which gave me this color, and there is a huge difference between that and the S-Log3 Cinema Gamut. Let's set it to where it's at. I do like the S-Log2. I could run with that and see where it brings me, but as you can see here, our highlights are not at 100 and our shadows are not at 0. So this makes this the perfect clip to play around with. I'm gonna skip film for now because that changes everything. It did add a bunch of contrast and brought it to where it was before with the S-Log2, but let's try and adjust that without the filter. So we just want to bring our highs up to about 100, our lows down to 0, and our midpoint kind of sits right here at 50. So I'm okay with that. This is bunched up in the shadows because of all of this down here being darker. So yeah, we're just going to leave that at that. I do think that this filter here, now that we add it in, is a little overdone, but this slider here affects everything, honestly. Yeah, so we're just gonna reset that. I don't know, because I do like the saturated feel of the oranges here though. Let's see what happens. Yeah, all right. So now that this push-pull affected our actual highlights, I brought our highlights back up, and I'm cool with this here. Let's go into print, brings it down, brings it way too high for me there. That's right in the middle, but I like this. This gives us that more vintage feel for me. But you know, everything is all perspective and how you see what your end result wants to be, and this is how I like this, so we're gonna run with this. Film grain automatically as soon as I click it on. I do like this here. It does give it that old school vintage camcorder feel, so I'm gonna keep that on. Halation, can't entirely see it even though without the mask you do kind of notice it, but not entirely. All right, let's go lower. We'll bump it up so you can really see it. Yeah, I don't like the way that looks at all, but to each their own. We're gonna leave this off for this clip here in general. Film dirt, I want to kind of crank that up a tiny bit. Film damage is what it's called. Yeah, I'm liking that right there. I love that I'm using clips from New York for this. It gives it that super gritty, vintage old school hip hop feel. I love these colors too. Film breadth, I'm not sure we're going to see much. Oh, I do see it. I think you see it more on the where the shadows are. It definitely affects that. We're gonna leave that on to kind of see what it looks like in the final render. And then gate weave, it does give it a little bit more movement if I'm not tripping. Yeah, we'll leave it on and see what it does. But yeah, so there's that clip. I do like the way this turned out. All these vintage yellows and orange. Dehancer really gives you and sells that film feel for whatever you're looking for. This is a clip of me in Miami, shot on a Sony. We went out there to shoot a shit ton of music videos for an artist from Rhode Island, and we had a blast. Now, as you see automatically with this conversion here, brings the colors right back to life. However, you do lose some of the contrast in these clouds here. And my mission right now is to kind of bring that back, see what that filter is, makes it even worse. Now, in our waves, we're still not hitting where we want, but that's not entirely always a bad thing. We can see what this does. It does brighten the image. Our mids are sitting a little high for me, so I definitely want to bring that down a tiny bit, and that's not gonna do anything. So I'm gonna bring those mids down in my own way. We're gonna go make sure you're on the adjustment layer that you are adjusting, and I always adjust in this color adjustments. I just feel I have much more room to play around with my clips, but we're gonna bring our mids down a tiny bit so we get a nice even spread here. And if you can see, these clouds are now coming back in. And what you want to do is actually go to this film strip, and you want those color adjustments to be under. See exactly what they did. You want to make sure that your plug-in effect is always on the bottom. I know this looks like color adjustments is on top, but actually Dehancer is on top of all of that. Just this on top means that is the first adjustment you had. So now we're gonna go back down. Let's see what this print does. These all have like very drastically different images. That one's like that like brings it back to log almost. That's crazy. I kind of like it. Almost made it like it did absolutely nothing. However, it did bring back the highlights on my skin, so that's not always bad, but I'm actually gonna go for it. I do like the way that looks right there. Yeah, that's kind of clean. All right, now that we've made like our adjustments to bring back our color and everything, I want to kind of go into this filter and see what we can make out of this. That kind of has like a Miami vibe. I wish Final Cut made it so that we can, you know, hit the up and down arrow key and like go through what these filters look like in real time, but it used to do that actually. And I don't know, they stopped it, and it's annoying. So Apple needs to fix that. That's giving Miami vibe. It's just way too oversaturated for me. This clip might not even be the best clip to be trying to show off. So we're just gonna leave this at that and head on to the next clip. So here we got a clip of my buddy Steez. He is a rapper, hip-hop artist from the Massachusetts area. He is super fire. We shot this in my old studio, built this set entirely custom. We actually used the studio, like that same corner with different set build, like 3 different times, and you would never be able to tell if you watched the video. But I shot this on a Canon R6 in log. So we're gonna go over here, Canon. We shot this on the R6. C-Log 3 Cinema Gamut. Now, I don't think I had my settings completely dialed in there, because if we look, we can tell, I don't know, this red and orange don't look 100% to me. I don't like it. 709. That's not too bad. We can use that as a base. I'll settle for that. But if you look like here in these meters, that is definitely not entirely where it needs to be. Yeah, no. All right, we'll set with that. Give this a little more saturation in the temperature. Let's try and get this back to normal. There, that is honestly much better. All right, I'm gonna start by adding like my film grain and everything and see what we're looking like. That is way too much. So yeah, there's our film grain. Not entirely liking it too much. The image is already grainy because I think this was before I knew what native ISO was, and I was just shooting at extremely high levels. So yeah, we're gonna leave grain off that. It doesn't do anything for the actual clip, but I know halation will. Let's see what this looks like here. I do like the way that looks. The way I originally colored this video is so fire, but we're just going to use this clip for the sake of the tutorial. So halation adds nice red bloom over our subject. That goes less. That turns it up a notch, but I'm not super satisfied with it. Let's go here. That's not too crazy. So yeah, nice halation. The bloom is not too crazy on this. You can't really see it in the mask on some things. You for sure can tell in the clip whether it's there or not. And it does work here, so we're gonna stick with that. Film damage. Not sure if I'm really gonna need it here. It does add a definite like cool effect to this. Yeah, I like the subtleness of this one. Yeah, that's even better. Not too crazy on it. Now for this being static and light not changing, you can absolutely see what this film breath does here. If you notice on the screen, like you got that like flickering, kind of like police lights, but like not so saturated. Kind of gives you like that old TV feel, I guess. So we'll leave that on there for the sake of the clip. Gate weave, static shot, gives it that little extra bit of movement that it wouldn't have otherwise. Because if you notice, this is a static shot and it's on a tripod. It's not moving in. There's no slow zoom in or anything like that. So if we bump that on, it adds like a little kind of like semi handheld camera shake. Let's go into the custom options here. I've never played with this at all. Oh, yeah, so that's definitely it. You can see it there. That's actually pretty cool. I could see that like being used if like, you know, those race car scenes where there's like a POV camera facing the helmet and they're driving really fast, or like some kind of clip with like high energy, kind of like that earthquake effect you have here in Final Cut, but not the earthquake effect. That's actually pretty cool. I do like that. Not entirely needed for this clip, however, it does work. So you know what? It adds that camera shake that you would see in vintage videos, whether it was on a tripod or not. It just gives it that like flicker feel. And like, I bet once I add this overscan on, exactly, it sells it way more. So let's bump this. I really like this 8mm one. It's so simple. You don't have all the extra stuff on there. You can go through widescreen, Super 35. That's cool, but I don't entirely like, that's not my style. All the texture on the side there. This one's cool though. But it doesn't sell it as good as something like this. But yeah, it gives it like that feel like you're turning a shutter, spinning the film on one of those old like Super 35 cameras. Like if I added the sound to this here, like it would 10,000% sell this. So there, add some vignette, looks good. We can run back up to the filter here because that is not the color I had envisioned when I shot this video. I really want to make this look like super cold, like very warehouse looking, almost very, very similar to that. More saturated blues though, right there. I like the way that color is. And now we can also bring in, that's cool, kind of desaturates without losing any of the color in our video. Yeah, super cool. So there's that. Might wrap this up here. Yeah, so even if you're just doing base color grading, obviously you got to learn all of these tabs more and kind of figure out what exactly they all do. I'm just kind of going off the rip, and you know, I haven't entirely studied what each and every little thing does, but even with, you know, a base knowledge of using these plugins, you can get really good coloring out of it. I'm by no means a master at this plugin at all, but if you have a basic knowledge of coloring and you want to push it further, or you know, goes for a specific look, especially this vintage look, this plugin is perfect. They also have a mobile app where you can pull up clips in your phone and do exactly everything you see here in this plugin right on your phone. Save it directly to your phone and you can upload to your socials from there. I hope this tutorial comes out cool because I've never done this before, so I'm trying real hard. I'm sure I can edit this to look fantastic, but we shall see. So yeah, I just want to give a big thank you to Dehancer for reaching out to me to do this tutorial. I've never done a tutorial before, so this is a cool first. They did give me a discount code for you guys to use if you want to download the plugin. I highly recommend this. This is awesome, especially for, you know, those extra creative projects that you really want to dive into coloring for, or if you're specifically going for that vintage feel, like this is the plugin for you. The code is Sweetfxtry, SWEETFXTRY. You get 10% off. So if you're looking for a solid coloring system plugin, Dehancer is definitely something you can get great quality color out of. All right, and thank you for tuning back in. I know it's been a long time. I've been meaning to jump back on the wagon with trying to get these videos done. I've just been so overloaded with work since getting off tour, getting back to personal projects, client projects back here in Massachusetts. It's just been a ride, and I haven't had all the time in the world to do much of anything for myself here. So this is a jump in the right direction. Thank you once again, Dehancer. Hope you liked the video. I give you guys 2 thumbs up. Thank you so much.